Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Dental Realist Podcast. I'm Dr. Ryder Waldron, one of your co-hosts tonight, and we really appreciate you joining us. We're excited to be back, and we are actually a man down tonight. Troy is off camping somewhere. We're pretty sure he's alive, but we haven't had any communication with him for days, so we're going to be just a two-man show tonight. And as usual, I'm joined by Dr. Marcus D. Neff. Marcus, how's it going?
Going all right. Just got done watching my girls play some softball, so good times.
Did you win, lose?
They won. They were up 12-2 and almost let the other team come back. Ended up winning 12-10, so.
Oh. Well, good.
Got to teach them how to close that deal.
That's right. They got to seal the deal at the end there. Well, tonight we are going to be talking about some practice builders, and some of this material is going to be coming from our book, So Now You're a Dentist. So if you want to get even more in-depth and more detail, you can check that out. You can find it on Amazon in ebook form. But these aren't practice builders that are going to cost you any money. We're not going to tell you to go buy a big, expensive piece of equipment. It's a lot of common sense stuff, but as you know, most of us know, common sense isn't that common. So, Marcus, let's just jump right into it.
All right, let's do this.
And you being the clothes horse of the Dental Realist Podcast, let's talk about how we, this is obviously our opinion, but we believe that you should dress nice and kind of insist that your staff do the same. But do you wear a three-piece suit to work by chance?
Yes, I do. We do formal Fridays. Yeah. A lot of people do casual Fridays, but we like formal Friday. Get all my assistants a boutonniere.
Yes.
Yeah,
a gown. Get them really dressed up. I mean, I bet the patients appreciate that.
It's a pretty fancy deal. That's when we do our best work on formal Fridays.
Yeah, so, I mean, really, it doesn't matter what you wear to the office. I mean, some guys and girls, like to really get dressed up. Some wear scrubs. I don't think, Marcus, you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it matters exactly what you wear. It's just kind of how you look and how you present yourself, right? I
think so. I mean, when I first got out of school, I always wore a shirt and tie. I kind of felt like it made me look more professional, and I kind of felt like I needed something. I was brand new out of school, and so I thought it made me look more professional. I suppose it probably did, but I've kind of transitioned slowly over the last 13 years. I went from a shirt and tie for several years to I think I just took the tie off, kept the dress shirt and dress slacks, and then these last couple of years where I've been working, we wear scrubs. So I think I've run the full gamut.
You really have.
Work in my pajamas.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I never really went shirt and tie because I felt like I was being constricted the whole time. But
yes.
I just usually go, slacks and shirt and try to look nice. I have done the scrubs thing for a while. When I'd work on Fridays, I'd wear scrubs and like one of our office T-shirts. But my wife started telling me I can't be wearing a T-shirt to work because it just kind of looks sloppy. So I either went to a scrub top or just wore normal slacks and shirt. And I wish Troy was here tonight because he wrote this section of our book, and he talked about how he felt better when he wore a shirt and tie, and he felt like he presented himself in a more professional way. And I guess that's probably true.
Yeah, I think it probably is. I mean, depending on the type of patients that you see, and I mean, I would just guess if you're trying to do more cosmetic stuff and more high-end dentistry, it may look better to the patients if you look like you're a real professional and you got a shirt and tie on.
Yeah.
But I think the end for me is really you still got to look professional, whether you're wearing scrubs or you're wearing a shirt and tie. If you have I don't know, if your beard is all scraggly and unkempt and your hair's all over the place and your teeth aren't brushed, I mean you're gonna look kind of not professional, whether you're wearing scrubs or you're wearing a shirt and tie.
Yeah, if you wear a tuxedo, it doesn't really matter if you're not freshened up a little bit. But
yeah.
And one thing I would recommend is that people actually run an iron over their clothes. I remember in dental school there was a guy in our class, and we won't mention any names, of course, but he wore a shirt one day, and you could see all the folds where he had just basically bought it and unfolded it and put it on. And I thought, oh, buddy, we got to clean that up. So I don't know. That's just one thing I would recommend. But,
have your clothes nicely laundered and pressed.
Yeah.
And whatever you're wearing,
right.
Clean.
And I've actually filled in at offices before where and actually Southeast Idaho, kind of your neck of the woods, Marcus, and they'd wear like Wranglers to work, and they were nice. And that was just, that went with their type of patient patient base, and there wasn't anything wrong with that. Still look professional, and their patients appreciate it. I mean, I had a lot of farmers and guys like that for patients.
Did they issue you your pair of Wranglers?
I absolutely did not squeeze into a pair of Wranglers. I'm proud to say I have never owned a pair of Wranglers. And I hope I never do. I know you like to throw a pair on every once in a while.
Well, I used to have a pair of Wranglers. Yes, I did, and I don't remember what happened to it, but I don't have any currently.
I think your wife said she liked you in a pair of Wranglers, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Wrangler butts drive me nuts. I'll tell you what.
That's right.
Well, and on this topic, insist your staff dress nicely too. I think it looks nice to have your staff wearing similar outfits. I mean, whether that's like, they wear the same polo shirt or they wear the same, scrub jackets or scrubs. I've never personally been a fan of the Garfield, scrubs or some corny scrubs. I mean, I don't know. I like something that looks sharp, looks nice, maybe a plain color. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do have my staff wear matching scrubs, and it's kind of a stressful time when it comes around time to buy scrubs because everybody has a different taste and different style and things like that.
Different body type.
Different body, yeah. And
I know that was probably not something I'm supposed to comment on.
No, for crying out loud. Now you've offended all our listeners, but no. Yeah, but that's totally true. I mean, people have different preferences, and I am the same way. I don't like the SpongeBob. I don't like the Garfield or anything like that. I did for a time have my staff every week wear Star Wars scrubs, but they were real subtle. They were just black with some gold trim. You couldn't really tell they were Star Wars, but then
I would go for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's cooler than that?
Now, Star Trek, no.
Nope, we're not none of that. But Star Wars you can get away with. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Marcus, that at least have them look nice and professional. And I mean, I've been to physicians' offices where you go in and there's no matching scrubs, and a lot of pediatricians' offices that I take my kids to, they'll have like Garfield or something like that. Maybe the kids like that, but it just doesn't come across as quite as professional, I guess, in my opinion. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the next topic, which is keeping our offices clean and up to date. And I know in our book, Marcus, you have a story about a TV that was in your waiting room. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but back in 2003 when we got out of school, I mean, you could buy flat screen TVs. Plasma was the big thing back then, but they were crazy expensive. And I did do a startup practice with a nice new office. It looked nice. I mean, really state-of-the-art, beautiful office.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
But in my waiting room, I had put up the old tube TV, the big box TV. Had one of those up on the wall on like this stand, and it had been up there for several years. And then I don't remember. We had some practice coaching or something like that, and somebody suggested that you go around your office and you sit in the places where your patients sit and look around and just kind of see what looks nice, what doesn't look nice, maybe what looks out of place. Well, for me, when I went out and sat in the waiting room, here I had this office where I was using digital x-rays, and I had all this new state-of-the-art equipment. And then I had this old TV up there. By the time, 2008, 2009, when it came around, you could get a flat screen TV pretty easily.
Yeah.
So here I'm sitting there looking at it, and I figured, man, I'm sending the wrong message to my patients. Here I want them to think we're state-of-the-art and up to date. But then I got this old TV up there on the wall, looking totally out of place and sending the wrong message. Not that I think that's the biggest thing, or that it was a deal breaker for patients if they came in and saw that. But it's just one more thing that right in the waiting room, changing that out and putting in a flat screen TV just made it feel right when you come into the practice that, okay, this is a modern, up-to-date practice. It's not like some old practice that's hanging on to old stuff.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I don't even know if I ever saw that TV, but I can kind of picture, I mean, your office was amazing. So that stuff happens. TV gets out of date. And I mean, patients, I think patients probably notice that stuff. They appreciate, I think more than anything, they appreciate up-to-date stuff and having a nice TV. I mean, that kind of conveys what kind of dentistry you're going to perform. And we know you like to do top-notch dentistry.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Nothing but veneers.
That's right.
Limited my practice to veneers.
Occlusal cavity? Nope, you get a veneer.
Yes.
But I mean, to go along with that, it's important to keep your office clean. I mean, sometimes, you'll have like a bug crawling across the floor or something like that. You want to make sure you keep that stuff out of patient's sight. You want to make sure the floor's swept. I mean, it does, you're getting in people's mouths. You want to make sure that they know that every inch of that office is clean, that you take sterilization, importantly, and, you clean it, washing your hands like they should, and it smells good. I know I've had some people in the past when we first got out of school that would come in and say, "Oh, this smells like a dentist office." I'm like, "Oh, that's not really what I want to have it smell like." So bought some of those like plugins at Bath and Body Works and things like that to freshen it up. But keep them
make
clean.
sure your bathroom's clean. I mean,
that's a good one.
I mean, stuff goes on in there that, frankly doesn't smell the best, but do your best to keep it clean. So if somebody uses your restroom, it, doesn't look dirty. It doesn't suggest that you're not clean around your office.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we've all been in those bathrooms, and not necessarily at doctor's or dentist's office, but there's places where you go in and you just think, I know this bathroom is going to be just disgusting, and you don't want that at a dentist office. And
for heck's sake, I mean, spring for the 2-ply toilet paper.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the half-ply, I guess it's cheaper, whatever, but,
I remember you having a problem with that half-ply in dental school.
Yes. I like a good quality toilet paper.
I can't blame you there.
Yes,
so
we're really digging deep.
We really are. Well, let's move on to our next topic, and please, Marcus, tell us how important it would be to use good manners in your office.
Well, I think patients, they pick up on that, especially between the staff members. So, if they overhear you talking about things, and the way you're talking to each other is just kind of, hey, go grab that. You need to go do this. You're just kind of demanding, whether it's the dentist or it's a hygienist or an assistant to somebody else in the office. That just conveys kind of this negative attitude, and it can leave kind of this feeling of tension in the air. I always tried to use please and thank you when I was working in the chair. What I still do, I'll have my patient my patient. Yes, I have my patient's assistant.
Your patient/assistant.
My assistants will hand me something. I'll say thanks. And vice versa. I'll do something and they'll say thanks, Dr. Neff, or can you please hand me this? That kind of stuff. It sounds nice. It conveys that you're a team, that you get along, that you like each other. And I think that helps patients relax a little more and feel confident. In fact, I had one patient at one point say, I think, to the front desk, I like coming here. I like how Dr. Neff and his assistant, they're just really polite to each other, really nice to each other. It feels good.
Yeah, and that's totally true. And I know Troy, on one of our previous episodes, said that, every time his assistant will hand him something, he'll say thank you. And he said he realizes he doesn't really need to, but I don't know if he really told his assistants this or just, in his mind that, he's always going to say thank you to his assistants. And I mean, that goes a long way with your assistants actually feeling important. I mean, I've read some surveys that the most important thing to any staff member is praise. And so if they feel important, I mean, they're going to work harder for you. And that just goes a long way to even improving the morale in the office. And I don't like it when patients are rude to me, and I still even try to be nice to them, even when, somebody says they hate me or whatever it is. But, and it's tough sometimes, but I don't like it when they're rude. So I try to not be rude to anybody. And I have an assistant that had taken her daughter to an orthodontist that we refer to. And while she was there, the orthodontist kind of snapped at an assistant and just like really tore into her. And she said it kind of, it wasn't like, we're not going to go back to that office or anything like that, but it was like, well, it was just kind of weird. She just said it was kind of uncomfortable. Yeah, uncomfortable. And like, yeah. And you just don't want tension when you've got to work with somebody that closely, patient or staff member. You don't want any stress like that. So, good manners are just super important, I think.
I think so too. And I think it's kind of tied to this is the whole concept of on stage, off stage. So when you're when a patient could potentially be an earshot of anything you're talking about, everybody's got to always remember that be careful about the things you discuss, the way you talk to each other, the things you're talking about a patient. If you are, I mean, because if you're at all if it's at all possible that a patient could hear what you're talking about, you need to be very, very careful about what you're saying. Make sure that you're off stage or somewhere where you know that your conversation is going to be private. I mean, sometimes you do have to have frank discussions with your staff members about something they're doing or not doing. Sometimes you do need to vent a little bit about a patient, but you just got to be really careful about where you're doing that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you don't want to, first of all, you don't want to break any HIPAA rules or anything like that. But on top of that, you don't want to be working on a patient and, for example, talking about another patient, and especially in a rude way, like, oh my gosh, I just hate it when that patient comes in, and then the patient in the chair is thinking, well, what do they say about me when I'm not here? And I mean, I don't know if I've heard of stuff like that going on. I've never experienced that in any offices I've worked in, but that's something to be aware of, because it just doesn't convey a good sense of, I don't know, patient appreciation and things like that. So,
yeah.
Well, let's move on to how to stay on schedule, which is important in my office. But Marcus, how do you manage to stay on schedule? I know it's important to you too, and you try to really stay on schedule at the office.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's a good practice builder. I personally, I hate it when patients show up late and want to be seen. I just kind of like things to be in order and to have my schedule run the way that I want it to run. And so I have to rely on my patients knowing that we expect them to be on time and keep their appointments. And so if we're going to demand that of our patients, we've got to do that on our end. We can't say, hey, make sure you're on time to your appointment, and if you don't show up on time, we're going to reschedule you or whatever. And then when we're running behind, expect them to just be happy to sit there and wait for 20 minutes into their appointment for us. So it can be tricky because, as everybody knows, in dentistry, sometimes things don't go as planned, and you can run a little long. But we try to make sure we're scheduling enough time for the procedures that we're doing. Don't try to cram everything in. I personally don't like to overschedule, anticipating that people aren't going to show up, because then when people do show up, you really are making it inconvenient and frustrating patients. So we try to schedule the right amount of time for whatever it is we're doing. We also, if by chance we're running a little late, I personally go out to the waiting room to the patient and I go tell them, I apologize that we're running a little late. Will you be okay waiting another 10, 15 minutes for us while we finish up? Most patients are fine with that, and they're willing to, say, okay, sure, I understand, especially if you, the doctor, go out and talk to them about it.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because if you put yourself in the position of the patient, and if you were at a physician's office or something like that, and how often are you sitting there for, you just go to the doctor's office, you just expect to sit there for like a half hour before you even go back to the room, and then you expect to sit in the room even longer than that. But how much would it matter if like the actual doctor came out and said, I'm sorry, we're running behind, this isn't normal for us, and, would you mind, like you said, waiting or rescheduling? I mean, that'd go a long way with me, but in healthcare, it's just kind of usually assumed that you're going to wait. And I know in my office, I almost insist that we run on time. And like you, I'll apologize if we're even just a few minutes late or have to wait for the patient. And a lot of patients, especially new patients, are like surprised that they're like, oh, you're ready for me? Like, it's appointment time. You're like, oh, you're already like, yeah, we want to run on schedule. We expect you to be on time, and we expect ourselves to be on time. And if not, if I can see that I'm going to get behind on a bad extraction, or, well, I don't know if there's such a thing as a good extraction, but some bad procedure, I'll have my front office call the patient and tell them, we're running a few minutes behind. Would you mind coming a little bit later? If that's not going to work, we can reschedule you and apologize. And some patients might get upset at that, but it's that versus, rushing through a procedure. And, how patients come in that they have broken a tooth, or, and we don't have time to do the crown that day. Maybe we have time to do a build up, and they're like, oh, you can't do the crown today. And I usually say, well, I would rather reschedule when we have enough time to do it properly. I would hate to rush through this. And most people don't want you rushing through a procedure in their mouth. I mean, there's a lot of fine, things that go into that, and you just don't want to rush through this. So most patients are pretty understanding about that.
They are, and I think a lot of patients, it goes a long ways to building that relationship, because they aren't treated that way in other places. Like you said, if you go to most physicians' office, it's assumed that you're going to sit there probably 20, 30 minutes past what your appointment was
Yeah.
before you get back. So when we're doing just the opposite, we're getting them back on time. I mean, that stands out. That makes an impression that, hey, this is a different place. This is a nice place.
Yeah.
They value my time, just as much as their own time. And I think that's critical. We value our time. Our time is definitely valuable. Each hour that we're in the chair is worth so much production. Well, the patient has things that they could be doing too, whether that's working or being with their spouse or their kids or just doing something they enjoy. I mean, if we're inconveniencing them by putting them behind a half hour, an hour, I mean, that's disrespectful to them.
Yeah, it is. I know how, like you said, we don't like it when patients show up late, and how often do people come rolling in 25, 30 minutes late? And, it's like, they just expect to be seen. It's like, well, we can't really, see, it's not fair to the next patient. It's not fair to our staff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's move on to our next topic here, which it might kind of sound stupid, but smell good. I mean, you're a dentist, for crying out loud. You're right in somebody's face, like a foot away. You've got to smell good. But Marcus, I know you like to really, use aftershave and things like that, but.
Yes, I do. I think it's important. I mean, you got to be careful too. You don't want to overdo it and lay on the cologne real thick or anything like that, because some people do. It's tough for them to deal with odors, and
yeah.
You're going to be around somebody in a tight space for quite a while. So you got to be careful about it. But put on some deodorant.
Yeah, yeah.
Brush your teeth. During the day, you say you go have lunch and you get back. I mean, take a couple of minutes and go brush your teeth, freshen up.
Yeah.
You're right close to patients. They want to know that you smell nice.
It's true. And if you go, I have it in my office manual that my staff is not to eat any garlic or onions or any stinky foods like at lunchtime. And I don't know if, that is like overdoing it, but I mean, I just really hate it when you're talking to somebody and they just like stink. And I would hate if I had a dentist and they're right in my face and they smell really bad, their breath or their body or whatever. I mean, it just sounds dumb, but it really is important, I think.
Well, I've had a staff member, and again, I'll keep this anonymous, of course, but that for whatever reason wasn't wearing deodorant. I mean, and that sounds nuts that a female would not wear deodorant. I mean, it's crazy for a male not to wear deodorant too. But she didn't, and it was kind of an uncomfortable conversation to finally have to.
Oh boy, yeah.
Say, hey, you can't just wear that natural deodorant or whatever you found on Pinterest. You gotta actually get some stuff from the store, and because we can smell you 2 opportunities down.
Man. Your natural musk is not doing it for us.
No.
I mean, that's a pretty short topic, but it's important though. I mean, and I think any dentist would agree with that. So, well, let's move on. I think we can kind of combine a couple of these next topics. One is, don't advertise in the yellow pages. I mean, we're not here to like bash on the yellow pages or anything like that, but we've talked about marketing campaigns and things like that, Marcus. You and I have tried just about everything, I think. And yellow pages is one that really doesn't work. And the other thing we want to talk about is that you don't need to sign up for every marketing campaign. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with marketing, Marcus, and with the yellow pages also?
Yeah, I think with the yellow pages, I've tried a nicer advertisement in the yellow pages. I've tried newspaper. I've tried radio. I've done mailers. So I've tried a lot of different things, and I'm not saying they're all absolutely not going to work or they're bad. But for instance, the yellow pages, it seems like unless you're the one of the biggest ads and you're towards the front of the dentist section, it probably doesn't matter. You don't need to spend the money there. And even then, I mean, those ads cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
To put those in the front of the yellow pages. And I think now, probably in the last several years, I mean, that book has gotten, less and less important. I can't think of the last time I went to a phone book and flipped to the yellow pages to look for anything. No. I mean, in today's world, we all have smartphones, we all have computers and internet. I mean, you want something, you Google it. You're looking for anything. You ask your friends and family members for a recommendation. So I think the yellow pages are really kind of a dead thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And I still get, the salesman wanting me to put ads on like the Yellow Pages website. And, you got to be at the top. I'm like, I can't remember the last time like I even went on the Yellow Pages website to look for anything. So
yeah, even though it's a website.
Yeah, you just Google it. So, but they'll tell you that you've got to be there. The SEO people, you've got to be at the top. And this, we just go back every time to when it comes to marketing that in-office referrals from your patients are the best thing. And they're free for the most part. I mean, if you send your patient a thank you or something like that, I mean, that's great. But that's where you get your best referrals. I used to work in an office where, I shared an office with a couple of dentists, and one of them, he did one of those huge ads in the Yellow Pages, and it was $30,000 a year. I mean, just ridiculous. And he said all he got was people on the weekends calling and looking for drugs, not even new patients or anything like that. So just not even worth it. And I've done the same thing with marketing. I've done the mailers. I've done, the little, like value packs, and we've both put ads in, little handouts at grocery stores. We've put things in schools and things like that. And, very few of them are really effective. I think maybe if you stuck with, say like a mailer and sent it every time, every month to, the same area, so they kept seeing it over and over, that may be worth it. But even then, I'm not sure that stuff is even worth it. And I at least in my experience, I haven't really gotten much out of it.
What about when you have patients? They've been patients for years, and they come in, they send their kid in, and they're going on some band trip, across the country, and they need donations to get to the band trip, or the family that has two kids playing t-ball, and they need some donations, and you'll get your name on the t-shirt. How have you worked through that?
Well, and that's a good one, because that's a tough one, because if they're longtime loyal patients, you want to be loyal back to them, but you also, it's a tough one, because you can't do all of those things. And there's a local junior high that's right by my office, and every year they do like a 5K run, and it's like $100 is the top donation they ask for, and I usually do that, and they put my name on the billboard, and that is kind of like gives me like a sense of community. We're supporting the local schools, but I've had some patients that have asked for donations, and year after year after year, and then they found like a cheaper office that does like the $39.95 cleanings and stuff like that, and they went to that office, and I know the office, and they're complete overdiagnosers and do a lot of kind of questionable things. And it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I had donated to help it was like the grandkids or something like that. And so that is a tough one. You just have to use your best judgment on those, and kind of see, it's good to establish a budget each month for marketing. And I think it is good to help out those things, especially if they're good patients and they're asking for, $10 or $20 or something like that. Or, they're selling some, card that gives you discounts at, the local burger joint or whatever. Right. Some of those are good, because it does show that you care. But, when you get people coming in and saying, my sister's kid is like you said, going on a band trip or a hockey tournament or something like that, and they're not even patients, it's really hard for me to justify that. But a good excuse that I have used is having my office or me saying, I've already used my marketing budget for this month or this year, so we really can't. It might not make them happy, but at least maybe they can understand. But that is a tough one. How have you handled that?
Pretty much the same way, honestly. I mean, if it's a patient, it's a good patient. It's someone like that. I mean, I try to contribute. If it's a school that my kids go to, I mean, I try to participate and contribute. But if you still got to use good judgment, you can't donate to everything. And really, most of those things, you're not going to get a bunch of new patients from those types of donations.
Yeah,
you're just going to build goodwill with the person you're donating to. Yeah,
and they might say something nice. Oh, Dr. Neff, he gave me that, and that's great. If that's goodwill, and they you get one patient out of it, that's great. But I've had these ad guys come in and say, we only have one spot left for a general dentist in this mailer or this flyer or whatever. And when we were first out of school, a couple of those got me. I'm like, oh, geez, there's only one left. Well, I've got to be in there. That's got to be me. I don't want to be left out. And you get nothing from them. And some of those those packs that you get of you get like yard maintenance and all these different things, 50 dentists in them. And I did one of those, I think it was 3 or 4 months, and it was $4,000. I got one patient out of it, and he came one time and never came back. So, I mean, what a waste of money. So, and these, these salesmen that try to sell you these things, they're going to tell you you're going to get all these patients. Ask for references, ask for, people that have used it before. And a lot of times they hesitate to give you that stuff because they don't have any, or they'll say, this is brand new. We want to get you in on the ground floor, be one of our first. Don't do it. And if you have questions, email us and we will help you. We will be your moral support. Okay. Well, let's move on to a motto I like to live by, which is when in doubt, refer out. Do you have certain cases or just black and white criteria in which you follow to decide if you're going to refer cases to specialists?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that I just don't do. I decided quite a while ago, after a couple of attempts, that I was not going to do wisdom teeth anymore. So whether they're erupted, they're impacted, whatever, whether it's my sister-in-law or whoever it is, I am not doing wisdom teeth. So, I mean, I'm going to refer those out. Outside of that, everybody's going to have their own different likes and dislikes and comfort zones. But, things like molar endo, I tend to refer most of that out. I do more extractions now in the clinic where I work than I did before, but I still, there's certain molars that I pretty much know I'm going to refer those out, But I think it's a good practice to kind of know your limitations, your likes and dislikes, and be comfortable referring to a specialist. Most places, I think that most dentists practice these days have a specialist within a reasonable distance from them. For one, I mean, you're held to the same standard of care as the specialist. So if you can't perform to that same standard of care, by all means, don't put that pressure on you. Don't do the disservice to your patient to do less than the highest quality of care for that, whatever that specialty care is. And for another, oftentimes it's not going to be very productive for you to do that procedure. I might take 2 hours or 2-2-hour appointments to get through a molar endo on a certain molar, but I could send that patient out and they could get it done in 45 minutes at an endodontist. And so I would have spent 4 hours and 2 appointments, getting through that endo, when it would have been better off for me to send them out, have them get the endo, come back and do my crown in an hour and a half or whatever. Yeah,
that's totally true. And I kind of follow the same thing. I used to do not a lot, but quite a few wisdom teeth when we first got out of school. And now I won't touch them. They're wisdom teeth. You're out of there. And unless it's some perio involved tooth that's about, a good sneeze will knock it out. But so case selection is huge. I'm the same as you. I do some molar endo. I don't do a ton of it. And extract, I just don't really like extractions. You do a lot more than I do. I don't enjoy those. And I'll get new patients coming in sometimes that, they come in, they've got a toothache and they just want to get this tooth out today. And I'm thinking, and sometimes when I say, well, I'm going to have to refer you to an oral surgeon, that's going to be a tough one. Or if it's like an endo treated tooth that they never got a crown on, it's broken at the gum line, and those are just a nightmare. And so I will send those out, and some people get mad about it, but it's not worth digging around, risking, some issue with the patient or anything like that. It's better to have a patient be mad and leave than, snap off a tooth and have to send it to the endodont or the oral surgeon anyway. And it saves just a ton of headache. You might have a mad patient, but at least you don't have to worry about, any legal issues or anything like that. Stuff fails. You do a root canal and it fails. Well, stuff like that happens, but as long as you're doing it within your comfort zone and, you feel like you can do it up to, like you said, the same quality as a specialist, well, that's okay. Stuff happens, but don't. What do you do?
What do you do when you have that patient? Because I know we've both experienced this, where somebody that or somebody that for whatever reason they just keep hounding you that, come on, and just do it here. I don't want to leave. I don't want to have to go somewhere else. It's your cousin. It's your own assistant. I mean, what do you do in those situations where they want you to do something?
So I actually had like a relative of my wife's at one point come in. I can't remember what it was, some sort of, kind of a denture case or something like that. And she had some dentures made at another office. And I told her, I I think you need to go back and have him look at this. I'm going to have to, I'd have to charge you for whatever procedure I'm going to do. And, I'm just not going to be able to do it up to, your liking, I don't think. So it'd be better if you go back to the dentist and have him take a look at it, which I feel like is usually kind of the right response in that case. But she went out of the office just fuming mad, just, yelling. And I'm just thinking, first of all, I don't even think I'd want to, see her anyway. So I'm glad she's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a tough one because you do get a lot of pressure to do that. I think you can do that. I have confidence in you that you can get this tooth out. Like thinking, yeah, I don't have confidence in myself to get that out. So I'm going to have to, and that's a tough conversation because you get that all the time. And I never thought before we got into practice that happened. I just thought, patients, if you go to the doctor and he tells you need to see a cardiologist, well, I'm going to go to the cardiologist. Or,
Right.
I had like a mole removed from my skin one time, and the physician he said, I can do it myself and just, I'll just kind of shave it down a little bit. It'll look okay after about 9 months. Thought, no, I think I'll go to the plastic surgeon, have that done.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it's a tough situation if you have people pressuring you into it, but stand your ground and explain to them in the nicest way possible. If they go away mad, that's okay, but you don't want to do something that you're not confident in because it'll usually turn out bad.
And you end up living with the frustration and the anxiety of wondering,
Yep.
did that go okay? Man, when's that going to come back? And
Yeah. Yep.
It's just better off to refer it out.
Yeah, it totally is. Just get ahead of it. And, it might lose you some production, but, it won't lose you your license or anything like that. So, well, speaking on that topic, let's move into this one, which is attend top-notch CE courses, which is hugely important right now to select certain, the right courses, I guess, to go to. But Marcus, I know you've gone to like some CEREC courses and some other stuff that you thought were actually really, really well done. So tell us a little bit about that and how you chose those.
Yeah, I've attended stuff that wasn't so great, but I've attended other stuff that was really great. And oftentimes, the stuff that's really good, you're going to have to pay to go to it. It's just how it is. The free stuff, occasionally you can go to something free that's all right, but you shouldn't go into it with big expectations that, this free course put on by such and such dental supply company is going to give you any great stuff to go back to your practice with. Yeah, occasionally there's a little something here or there, but if you really want to learn a specific skill or get better at something, it usually requires that you're going to travel somewhere. It's going to cost you some money. And the best ones have some form of hands-on where you're actually getting to do the procedure or use the equipment so that you really get a feel for it and you're comfortable with it. I've done CEREC and the technology's awesome, but it's key with that technology that you follow the formula, you do the right steps, because the technology can't make up for a crappy prep or it's not going to spit out a beautiful crown that fits a crappy prep. So those courses, they really take the time, the number of students to instructors. There's a good ratio there. It's in a nice setting at Scottsdale, Arizona. You have your own CEREC unit that you're using. You're not sitting there sharing it with somebody else. You're not just watching somebody do it up on a screen. So you actually got to go hands-on and do the various steps to make a crown or whatever thing you were working on at that time. So it was honestly some of the best CE money I've ever spent. It really helped me take my abilities to another level with CEREC.
Yeah, and if you're going to be adding like procedures like that, placing implants, CEREC, ortho, things like that, you're going to have to spend the money, and you will, you'll get that money back by spending it, or by being able to do like good procedures. But you don't want to go to a weekend course in implants and go back Monday to the office and feel like you're ready to place a molar implant or something like that.
Yeah.
You got to think that an oral surgeon or a periodontist goes to, 2 or 3 or 4 extra years of school to learn how to do this stuff, and you're going to learn it in like 3 days. It's just not feasible. And Same thing with ortho. We see the commercials on TV, at least around here I do, that, an orthodontist is an orthodontic specialist, he has extra schooling, and it's totally true. We got like 2 or 3 courses in dental school about ortho, and then you're going to go to a weekend course, and all of a sudden you can do this perfect ortho. No, and there are courses that you go to. There'll be several weekends and over probably a couple of years, and they are expensive. But if you want to do good ortho and you plan on putting it into your office permanently, then it's worth it to do those things.
I agree.
And those little free courses, or $100 or something like that. I mean, we've been to those, and usually I'll pick up a couple of little nuggets here and there. Not gold nuggets, just just normal nuggets,
Yes.
chicken nuggets,
Chicken nuggets for lunch,
and, which is good. You might, but usually when you go to those, you got to expect that you're gonna get sold something. You go to they're gonna teach you this amazing endo way to do endo. Well, no, they're gonna teach you how to do endo with their product, and then they're gonna want you to buy it at the end. Because we all know how to
get it that day for the discount.
Yeah, because, exactly. Yeah, it's going to make your life. It's going to make you love endo. Well, no, it probably won't.
Those CE courses have been useful though for things like getting together with friends.
Yeah, we do.
Being able to socialize with some friends. They cut out early and go do something.
Yeah. Yep, that has been what those are most useful for. And sometimes they'll do them for our local district dental society, and sometimes you'll get a good steak out of it. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Then you'll get a boring lecture after. So, yeah, you're right. You're going to have to spend, if you want to have top-notch courses, you're going to have to spend the money, and the hands-on are just usually the best. Totally makes sense. So,
yeah.
Well, let's talk about using great labs. I know, like you said, if you have a crappy prep, nothing's going to spit out a beautiful crown. But sometimes there's those preps for a crown, denture, whatever, that they don't turn out perfect, but a lab can totally save you and make that tooth just look beautiful, I think, at least. I
think so, too. I mean, there's everybody, all of us get stuff in the mail for, $99 crown or $29 zirconium, whatever it is. But a lot of those, you just got to be really careful. Prices and everything, just like it's not in a dental practice. I mean, just because somebody has the cheapest price for a root canal or a composite, doesn't mean it's the best quality. So I've found that the labs that I use, when I use a local one, it may not be the cheapest one, and I'm not saying it has to be the most expensive one either, but usually that's when I get the best quality. Partly, I think, because they know me and I know them. We could physically see each other and talk, and I can go over there. They can come to my office, but also partly because they are local. They feel a little more of a connection and an ownership of the things that they're producing. So, in my opinion, you're going to get usually the best results, whether crown, removable, whatever it is, using a local lab. Yeah, I totally agree, and I like local labs also, and I've used the ones you send off into other states, and they're okay, and a lot of times the work comes back pretty good. But man, when you're doing like a denture, and I did a denture try-in last week, and the lady wanted the teeth lengthened, just brought down a little bit. Well, I can send it to the local lab, and they'll have it back the next day, if not like the next hour. But if you've got to send it 2 states away, it's going to be another week, and that really draws the process out. And so I'm like you. I'm in favor of local labs. And like you said, you don't want to break the bank. You don't want to spend $500 on a crown. But, sometimes you do have to spend a little bit extra, 10, 15, 20 bucks more to get a good crown that fits and might save you replacing it in the future. It just might be a little better to spend a little bit more up front right now. Yeah, and like you were talking about that lab case with the denture, if you've constantly been sending stuff out somewhere else, and then all of a sudden you're in a pinch and you call up the local lab guy, maybe he'll bail you out and help you out and turn something around quick just because he's trying to earn your business. But maybe not too, if he feels like, okay, this guy's been stiffing me all along, and he never sends me anything. It's coming up on Friday, and I got things I want to do. I'm not gonna spend my Friday afternoon or into my Saturday to get this thing done for this guy. Yeah, totally true. And we've all been there. If you have to have a little porcelain added to a crown or something like that, it's nice to have the actual lab guy or one of his employees come over and, you can show it to him like, okay, I can't explain this on paper, but let me show you in the patient's mouth. And it's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And I totally agree. And I've been there where, you just see stuff from other labs and it's just not that quality. So if you find a good lab, stick with that lab, and it just makes it makes your life a lot better. I had one when we were probably out of school a year or two maybe, and this guy,
he almost needed like full mouth rehab. He had ground down like most of his molars, premolars, even anteriors, and we were going to replace. I think we were going to try to crown like most of his upper teeth, and got the preps done on one side. We're going to start with, I think, just his posterior teeth, and send it to the lab. And the lab just kept sending it back saying, you can't have this. We need this better, this. I'm thinking, God, what are my skills not that good? What is going on? And I had talked to another dentist in the office I worked in that he'd been in practice for, like 12, 13 years already. And he said, said, yeah, watch out for this, do this. I prepped him, sent him to the lab, and they kept sending him back. And then they called me over to the lab and like, let me show you this. And they were real condescending, really kind of talking down to me. And anyway, the patient got mad, and he went to his previous dentist, and he actually happened to work in the same building as I did. He came over and he said, I had this patient come in. Let me just show you what I saw. And he's like, your preps were perfect. The lab was totally wrong. They were totally out of line telling you how to do things. And, sometimes the labs have to realize that you can't get those preps ideal. They're going to have to work with what they have to work with. And so that made me feel better having a veteran dentist tell me that. But, if you're getting just headaches from the lab every time, or they want you to, trim a die for them and things like that, well, I don't know, maybe find a new lab. I think I haven't trimmed a die. I haven't trimmed a die in years, so who knows? So anyway, well, let's move on to looks like our last topic, which is don't work on Saturdays. And in this day and age with, dentistry being so competitive, and, everybody, insisting that they, don't take a day off work, and they want to be, they want convenience and things like that. Saturdays sound like a good idea, and sometimes you'll have to do them. But Marcus, I know when I first got out of school, I tried to work Saturdays because I thought a lot of people are going to want to come in. They're going to want to do, their dentistry on Saturday. I'll be just a lifesaver. I'll be so busy I won't be able to stand it. And then Saturday rolled around. I had a full schedule, and nobody would show up because they all found something better to do. Have you ever worked Saturdays before? I don't even know if we've talked about this.
I haven't. I haven't ever worked Saturdays, but I can imagine that's exactly what would happen. I mean, people, if it's not something real pressing, that they're not in pain or that kind of thing, most people have stuff they want to go out and do on a Saturday. So, yeah. If their choice is between, going water skiing or going and getting their teeth cleaned, go spend whatever, or even if their insurance covers it, go to the dentist and get my teeth cleaned, or go out and be on a boat in the water and enjoying the sunshine. You're probably going to lose if you're the dentist.
Yeah. I remember it was like the year after we graduated, I had a patient that wanted to come in to get his wisdom teeth out, and he had Memorial Day off. And I thought, okay, we'll schedule him on Memorial Day. He wants to come. I'm going to take those out. We'll have time to do it. And he no-showed. And that taught me a lesson. Like, these holidays, it sounds great to, make a schedule on them, but it doesn't usually work out. If you have an emergency or something like that, that's fine, especially if it's an established patient. But as far as a rule for scheduling people on Saturdays, it doesn't usually work out that great. And unless you're guaranteed a payment, if it's like, $500 a day, whether or not you produce, your goal or whatever, you're working for somebody, it usually doesn't seem to work out that well, at least in my experience. So yeah. I have had a neighbor before ask me, he called, he had a toothache. I don't know if he was self-employed at the time, and he wasn't, he just lived in my area, and that was years ago, but he called and, said he's got a tooth bugging him. Could I come in and see him on Saturday? And I said, well, is it hurting you? Cause we could, if we could wait till next week, that'd be better. I could get my staff in there. We could really do it. Well, I really don't want to take a day off work next week, so I'd really appreciate it if you could come in today. And of course I go in and do it. And, it's like, you're doing dentistry like you're in dental school, because you're doing it by yourself, and it's just not ideal. And then, they don't usually seem to appreciate it that much, it seems like. And I also had a patient, I think I've told you about, that the night before Thanksgiving several years ago, she called me because her denture was loose, and I hadn't done the denture. Some other dentist had, and he was out of town. She couldn't get a hold of him, so she needed her denture tightened up for Thanksgiving. And me, not knowing how to say no, said, I'll come over and I'll do the reline at your house. Yes. And I'm thinking, that seems, call. Yeah, how nice is that? Went over there, did like a soft reline on her, and then, the next week I sent her a bill. She called to complain about it. And I thought, well, that's kind of ungrateful too. So, I don't know if you get the quality patients that you're looking for if you're working on Saturdays is my moral, I guess.
Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, and if you do decide, hey, you know what, I do want to see this patient, my suggestion would be have the patient pay for the appointment up front.
Yeah, that's a great point.
If you're going to go in on a weekend, on a Saturday, your normal day off, whatever it is, I mean, I would have the patient pay for it up front.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And if you're going in, I mean, if it's like a $7,000 case you're going to go in for, by all means, that might be totally worth it. But like you said, make them prepay. You'll find out how important that, a lot of patients say, well, I can't come during, I can only come on Friday. I can only come on Saturday. Well, you'll find out how important it is to them when you say, well, yeah, you can prepay for that and I'll be here. But, usually that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, we hope we've actually kind of helped you with a few little nuggets tonight and helped just add a little to your practice building. But Marcus, do you have anything to add before we sign off for tonight?
We sure appreciate everybody that's listening. We're getting more and more listeners to our podcast every week. We really appreciate our faithful listeners and the new ones that are coming on board. We hope the things that we're sharing with you bring value to your practice, or if you're looking to practice dentistry, we're confident these things that we're sharing with you, though a lot of them are common sense, they really do make an impact in your career. So we appreciate you listening, and you can reach out to us and contact us on at dentalrealist@gmail.com. Send us an email if you have a topic you want us to cover, if you have a question about something. You can find us on Facebook, Dental Realist on Facebook, Twitter @DentalRealist. So we'd love to hear from you, and we appreciate your support.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we appreciate that a lot. And we hope Troy's still alive. If you see Troy out there wandering around anywhere,
yes,
let him know we still care about him and that we expect him to be back next show. No, he's just camping with his family. We don't think there's any emergency or anything like that. So he will be back for episode 12 next time. So, well, for Marcus D. Neff, I am Dr. Ryder Waldron. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you next time on the Dental Realist Podcast.